Chapter 1, Mishnah 6. After a woman gives birth or miscarries, she goes through a period of tuma, when marital relations are prohibited, followed by a period of tahara, when marital relations are permitted on the biblical level, even if she experiences a flow of blood. If the child was a boy, the tame period lasts 7 days, and the tahara period lasts 33 days. If the child was a girl, the tame period lasts 14 days, and the tahara period 66 days. After the tahara period, she brings the korban yoledes. Thus, she counts a total of 40 days after giving birth to a boy, 7 plus 33, and 80 days after giving birth to a girl, 14 plus 66, before she could bring the korban. The Mishnah refers to the entire 40-day period for a boy and the entire 80-day period for a girl as melos, literally completion. This is based on the Torah's phrase in Vayikra chapter 12, verse 6, and at the completion of the days of her Torah. In the case of a girl where the period of tahara lasts 66 days, it is possible for the woman to conceive and miscarry a real fetus, i.e., one that is at least 40 days old, before her 80-day melos ends. If that happens, she does not have to bring a second korban yoledes. Since the miscarriage took place within the melos of the first birth, the korban for the first birth or miscarriage counts for the second miscarriage as well. Therefore, if she miscarries on or before the 80th day, she is exempt from bringing a second korban. See chapter 2, Mishnah 4. However, if she miscarries on or after the 81st day, she is obligated to bring two korbanos, one for the original birth or miscarriage and one for the second miscarriage. The Mishnah considers the law where she miscarried on the night of the 81st day after the first birth, i.e. the night between the 80th day and the 81st day, which is part of the 81st day, since the halachic day begins and ends at nightfall. We now turn to the words of the Mishnah. If a woman miscarries on the night of the 81st, Beis Shammai rule that she is not obligated to bring a second korban, although this night belongs to the 81st day. Beis Shammai view the miscarriage as though it took place during the melos of the first birth, for the reason given below, and thus it does not require her to bring a separate korban. But Beis Hillel rule that she is obligated to bring a second korban because the fact is that she miscarried more than 80 days after the first birth. Beis Hillel make two arguments in support of their ruling. Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai, first, why should the night of the 81st be different from the daytime of the 81st? If the woman would have miscarried in the daytime of the 81st, you would agree that she must bring a second korban. Therefore, miscarriage in the night of the 81st should also require a separate korban, since the 81st day legally started that night. Second, since the night of the 81st is equal to the daytime of the 81st in regard to Tuma, should it not be equal to the daytime of the 31st with regard to the korban? There is no question that if she has a flow of blood on the night of the 81st, she would become tamei, the same as if she had a flow in the daytime of the 81st. This shows that the night of the 81st belongs to the post-melos period. Thus, if she miscarries that night, she should have to bring a separate korban. Beis Shammai responds to Beis Hillel's first argument. Beis Shammai replied to them, no, the fact that a miscarriage in the daytime of the 81st requires a second korban does not prove that a miscarriage in the night of the 81st requires a second korban, because although you say that a woman who miscarries in the daytime of the 81st must bring a second korban, that is because it came out in the daytime, when she is fit to bring the korban. Can you say the same about one who miscarries in the night of the 81st, which came out at a time that she is not fit to bring a korban? Korbanos can be offered in the temple only in the daytime and not at night. Accordingly, it was impossible for her to bring her korban yoledes in the night of the 81st. It can thus be said that the melos continues through the night of the 81st, and the post-melos period does not begin until the morning. Therefore, if she miscarried that night, it is as though she miscarried during the melos, and she need not bring a new korban. Beis Hillel responds to Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel said to them, but the law of one who miscarries in the daytime of the 81st that fell on Shabbos will prove that you are wrong. For this miscarriage did not happen when she is fit to bring a korban, since personal korbanos cannot be brought on Shabbos, and yet she is obligated to bring a separate korban for that miscarriage. We see from this law that even though she could not have brought her korban on the 81st day because it was Shabbos, that day is not part of the melos. Rather, it belongs to the post-melos period. The same should be true of the night of the 81st. Although bringing a korban is impossible then, because it is nighttime, it belongs to the post-melos period. Thus, a miscarriage on that night should require a second korban. Beis Shammai respond. Beis Shammai said to them, no, this law regarding the 81st day that fell on Shabbos does not prove anything. Although you say that a woman who miscarries on the 81st day that fell on Shabbos must bring a second korban, that is because despite the fact that Shabbos is unfit for bringing a personal korban, it is fit for bringing a communal korban, such as the daily Tamid offerings and the Shabbos Musaf offerings. Since some types of korbanos may be brought on Shabbos, it is regarded as a day fit for korbanos. We agree then that even if the 81st day falls on Shabbos, it belongs to the post-Melos period, and so if she miscarries that day, she must bring a new korban. Can you say the same about one who miscarries in the night of the 81st? Given that the night is fit neither for a personal korban nor a communal korban, since no korban at all can be brought in the night of the 81st, that night should be considered part of the melos. Therefore, a miscarriage on that night does not require a separate korban. Beis Shammai now addressed Beis Hillel's second point. Beis Hillel had argued that just as a woman who had a flow of blood on the night of the 81st becomes tame, which shows that the night belongs to the post-melos period, so too a woman who miscarried that night should have to bring a new korban. To this Beis Shammai respond: the proof that you cite from the law of the blood is not compelling, because the law of her tuma and the law of her korban are different, as we see from the fact that if a woman miscarries during the melos, her blood that accompanies the miscarriage is tame, and yet she's exempt from bringing a second korban, because the miscarriage took place within the melos. This one incident is considered as having taken place after the melos with respect to tuma, but during the melos with respect to the korban. We can say the same regarding the night of the 81st. Although flow of blood on that night would make her tame, like a flow after the melos, a miscarriage on that night does not require her to bring a separate korban.